Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video. And in today's video, I'm going to be giving my prediction for the Usman Nurmagomedov versus Paul Hughes rematch. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so, like the video if you do indeed like the video, and feel free to join the Patreon as well. There has been, plenty of videos that have come from there, and I really appreciate all the members and support I've had with it so far. You can request any kind of combat sporting related content, and I will try my best to get out there for you guys. The link will be in the description. Thank you very much again. And so let's get straight into this one. This is a rematch in which I'm really excited for, to be fair. I did a prediction for the first fight, and I thought that, it would be a good matchup, but I didn't expect it to be kind of as good of a matchup in which it kind of ended up being. I mean, I actually thought it was a very good fight in the end, and it was two just very high level martial artists kind of going at it at the peak of their abilities. And again, it was exciting, it was entertaining, but it also had that good technical element in which you want to see in a fight, and it's not just a messy scrambling fight. You can see the actual ability that both fighters have. And I mean, I think this definitely warranted a rematch and is now a more anticipated matchup than before, in my opinion, with them, both Nurmagomedov and Hughes now being two of the biggest names in the division, in the organisation. And I think these fights are massive for PFL to kind of bring in revenue, as they don't have a tremendous amount of star names as of yet. And of course, they've been able to make a couple of big names with the tournaments and things like that. Fighters like Ditchcheva and, Eblin was a bit of a big name before, of course, he went on to lose. So again, they've made a couple of, relatively big names as a result. But these two, Paul Hughes is somebody who has had to work in the PFL quite a bit. And again, like I say, has been able to make himself quite a big of a star. And they've seemed to, in the promotion for this event, kind of moved away from it being, the Habib versus McGregor 2 type of event, as it now kind of has its own hype as, like I say, an event as itself. And that's great to see. I mean, the fact that they were kind of trying to promote it the first time round as Ireland versus kind of Russia or Uzbekistan, or, where they're from, too, wasn't really something in which I wanted to see, because you don't want to just kind of give them the label as the next McGregor. You want them to build themselves up as their own star, and like I say, I think Paul Hughes has done that. Hughes, you know, has been able to really make a kind of star name out of himself, and he bought a really good fan base when he fought in the first fight, and I believe that was still in Dubai, to be able to bring a good Irish fan base. The Irish fans for MMA are always going to be there, and they are willing to travel as well. If McGregor has shown anything, that it shows that they are willing to travel, and of course he was able to do that. I mean, he was playing up to the crowd, kind of mid-fight after the head clash between the two of them. And again, that's what you kind of want to see. You want to see somebody who's going to create that hype. And then also, I mean, Hughes didn't drop the ball in a fight in which was a bit of like a keep busy type of fight. He went away to his home country and got a first round stoppage to keep the hype alive for a rematch. And again, that's what he needed to do, get that first round stoppage, keep the hype there. The fans were really in, big numbers to see him get that. And again, it's exciting and it's new and it's fresh. And like I say, it's a new kind of hype train for Irish fans to get on. Of course, the Nurmagomedov name, kind of that invincibility around it has seemed to fade a bit in more recent times. Of course, they are still on a great run, and of course they are still, as a family, some of the best fighters around. But the Nurmagomedov name has seemed to take a bit of a hit in more recent times. Of course, Usman had a close fight with Paul Hughes, and it did show, some vulnerabilities in the Nurmagomedov game, and he didn't just kind of walk through him. He didn't just make him easy work. He really had a tough test. And then, of course, Umar lost as well. So again, there is some vulnerabilities there, and it shows that they are, of course, just humans. So again, that's creating even more hype for this as a rematch. To speak about both fighters a little bit more individually, Nurmagomedov as a fighter, he's a very good composed striker. I think his kicking variety was something that was able to have a lot of success with in that first fight. He was continually kind of switching stance, which again maybe made Hughes question when to commit a little bit. And he was a very accurate striker in the Magomedov. He was just, chopping away at Hughes. He was having a lot of success with the leg kicks, in which was, definitely reddening up Hughes's legs, and then otherwise was putting in a very wide variety of strikes. He had a nice body kick in which he was throwing. There's some strong body kicks in which he throws, and again, like I say, he was able to really kind of use the full range of his strike to be able to maintain a bit of a distance for quite a large chunk of the fight. And saying that he is often somebody in the Magomedov who's going to be fighting on the back foot quite a lot, to be able to maintain that range is very important against somebody who is very explosive and strong and is wanting to fight in close, as what Paul Hughes is. And like I say, he was able to pick off the shots, and yes, perhaps they weren't always the most powerful of shots that Nurmagomedov was landing. The fact that he was able to get full kind of leverage on them, first of all, meant that Paul Hughes couldn't respond with a counter, because he has very good sharp counters, but he couldn't respond to them because Nurmagomedov was too far out of range, and quite often he was able to be, just too far out of range in that first fight, Nurmagomedov. And then, secondly as well, he was able to, like I say, pick up points from just, tapping away, really kind of slowly just wearing you down throughout the fight. And again, that's what I thought he had a lot of success with. He was able to work inside the clinch well as well, and he was turning Paul Hughes well, but Paul Hughes was also turning Usman well as well. So again, that was some high level kind of clinch work. He was trying to land that nice kind of knee on the inside, and almost landed it on a couple of occasions to land on Paul Hughes's chin, but of course it wasn't quite there. But again, it did look like quite a deadly shot in which he was, visibly trying to go for, and you could tell that his team were wanting him to try and go for that. He was mixing takedown attempts well. He's got a very good variety of takedowns, and the attempts in which he goes for. It's not just, one-dimensional. Hughes was able to defend them very well, but in the later rounds, perhaps that's what was able to get him a bit more of success when Hughes was tiring a slight bit. Nurmagomedov, especially in that last round, was able to get a nice takedown, which was, just enough to be able to, in my opinion, probably nick that round. He is able to impose his size, and when he does, he's able to have success, like I say, being that more physical, and I think physically stronger than Hughes, in my opinion, and just a bigger guy in general. He's got power with his jab as well, and that was able to land quite nicely on a couple of occasions. He's got good footwork, and he is pretty much constantly moving. Both these guys have got a very good gas tank, very good stamina, and he was, like I say, continuously moving, kind of circling around back and forth, not just going in the same direction throughout the entirety of the fight, which is not an easy thing to do. And often when you see fighters trying to fight like that, they'll get tired, and that's when they'll slow down, and that's when they'll, eventually kind of wilt away. But of course, it didn't happen to Usman. He's able to, like I say, manage range well, and his kind of speed in which he's able to, level change is very impressive as well. And of course, did still, cause Hughes a decent amount of problems. And of course, again, he was able to get your back. He's able to get your back very well, and he's always a threat to be able to get your back, especially when you kind of exchange of him in close. And again, in that, I believe, final round, he was able to get the back of Hughes, and then from there, have a bit of success, and that was a nice thing to see. And of course, judges are going to favour that as well. Negatives about him, I think he can prefer a bit of a slower pace, and I think Hughes, I would like to see maybe a little bit of a faster pace coming into this rematch. He was quite happy to fight at a slow pace, both of these fighters, for the majority of the fight, especially the earlier rounds. And if Hughes maybe is able to start a little bit quicker, now he knows that the Magomedov's power, he's able to withstand it, Hughes, then maybe he might be able to have a bit of success there. He allows that pressure, and he does back off. He doesn't always put a tremendous amount of power into his strikes, and again, he is able to strike with power, but again, it's just not always striking with the most amount. He leads. He's leaning backwards with his chin in the air quite often, and can sometimes seemingly kind of overly respect his opponents a bit as well. He can be caught off balance. I think his balance was sometimes a little bit questioned when they were going in for exchanges, and he can have a bit of an open guard when he is coming in himself, and that's when Hughes was able to counter him. He doesn't always, he didn't always be able to make the takedowns count or really be able to keep Hughes down, which was, not something in which we've normally seen from Usman. Normally he's able to do that really well, but he just wasn't able to keep Hughes down that successfully in that fight, and he stands quite tall as well. And of course, he had a point deducted, which also, made the fight a lot closer from continuously just kicking down low. And yes, I'm sure that wasn't something in which he was deliberately doing, but he really does have to make sure that he isn't trying to do that in this fight, because if this is another close fight, then of course this might not go his way if he is just continuously, kicking down low and having a point deducted. Speak about Hughes a bit more from that first fight. He, of course, has fast hands. He's explosive. Of course, not just the first fight I'm speaking about. His last fight in which he had, which of course he managed to get a first round stoppage. You showcased that explosiveness. He's got strong, powerful combinations when he's throwing. He is a combination puncher at his best, in my opinion, when he's ripping to the body in close. When he is fighting in a clinch and he's ripping to the body, it's really impressive. He typically is able to find his way in close at some point in the fight, and like I say, that's when he's going to be able to have his success. He's not really somebody who's got a tremendously good reach or is really using his reach too much, but when he finds his way in close, it is really impressive. Of course, he's youthful. He puts his all into his shots. He's got good timing and good counters. Again, whenever Nurmagomedov tried to go for a little bit more than just a singular shot, Hughes was able to counter him, quite a lot, and was able to time on him quite a lot. He's best at a high pace, I think, Hughes, and he's a good, compact puncher as well, where he's going to be able to catch and throw shots. He, I think, improves throughout fights, but, can be a fast starter as well if you let him. So he is very well rounded. He's got good takedown defense and scrambles. His takedown defense was excellent in that first fight. And again, the scrambles as well, even when he did get taken down, pretty much nullified the takedown. And of course, if you take all that energy to go for a takedown and then your opponent in Hughes is just able to stand up again, then that was just a waste of a tremendous amount of energy. So again, he was able to really scramble well and, like I say, showcase a good takedown defense, and also, like I say, was able to rotate and flip and maneuver Nurmagomedov in the clinch, which was again something in which was surprising for, I'm sure, most of the fans. He's got, like I say, great body work. He feints well as well. He's constantly coming forwards, and he is a bit of a bullish type fighter when he was, wants to be. He, like I say, fights best in close, and he has very good short shots, and he's also calm on his back, which is something in which I noticed in the end of the fourth round. He was, yes, in a bad position on his back, but he didn't get tense. He didn't kind of overthink it or anything. He rode out the round and was able to be quite relaxed and, like I say, looked comfortable and happy and confident in there as well. He's definitely a confident fighter. Negatives about him: I didn't think that he used his jab enough in that first fight. If he'd have used it a bit more, I think he could have had a lot more success, because whenever he was able to land with the jab, it was always catching and landing on the Nurmagomedov. But like I say, I just didn't think that he used it enough, and like I say, I would like to see that a little bit more to be able to actually set up things, go for a jab, then maybe fake a takedown, then go in with a strike. That would be a way for him to be able to have success and to get in close. He can be a little bit reckless at times coming in. He can square up. I think he has a little bit less a striking variety. Not to say his variety in striking is bad, but it's just a little bit lesser than that of Nurmagomedov's, and he isn't really the best, in my opinion, at fighting at a mid-range, and he can load up on his strikes and, wait a bit too long. I think he was waiting too long and, like I say, taking them little scoring shots from the Nurmagomedov, which he really didn't need to take. But like I say, they were, of course, not hurting him, but still, like I say, point scoring shots for the Nurmagomedov, especially early doors. He's not as physically strong in my opinion. He can be caught in a clinch by kind of having his head, forced down again. That physicality isn't there at the same kind of level as Nurmagomedov. His head is on the line quite a lot, and, he didn't really seem to be able to really try and attempt to get Nurmagomedov in a bad position. And, even if he rotated Nurmagomedov in the clinch, he didn't really go for a takedown. He wasn't really attempting to get you to the ground where, yes, he knows and was respecting Nurmagomedov's takedown ability, but maybe he could have tried, later on in the fight when he was able to turn Nurmagomedov up against the cage to then be able to go for a takedown instead of just a couple of body shots. Because, yes, the body shots were nice, but if he would have got a takedown, I feel like that would have been a bit more eye-catching in my opinion. Who do I think is going to win this rematch? It's a really tough one to call in my opinion. I think it definitely is going to be another good fight. I would like to see more of Paul Hughes' jab, and I would like to see more of Usman Nurmagomedov going for takedowns. But again, I also want to see Paul Hughes start a bit quicker as well. So again, it's a very tough fight to call. I think either Nurmagomedov is going to get stopped, which might be a bit of a surprising thing, or Nurmagomedov is going to get a decision. I'm going to say that Nurmagomedov is going to get a decision. It's probably, in my opinion, if it goes to a decision, will be a unanimous decision, because I think he would be able to drill and find a bit of a better game plan to be able to work, the best way to be able to beat Paul Hughes, because he's had more time to prepare just solely on Paul Hughes, because Paul Hughes of course went and had his fight in between. So I'm gonna go with the Nurmagomedov unanimous decision. I think that Usman's going to be able to win a bit more convincingly, but still I think it is going to be a very well contested fight again. And it will be definitely interesting to see the striking exchanges. I just, like I say, believe that Usman is going to be able to actually deliver more takedowns on Paul Hughes. Again, Paul Hughes showcased a great takedown defense, but I would like to see the physicality of Usman Nurmagomedov come to play a little bit earlier on in this second fight. So again, I'm going to go with a unanimous decision for Usman Nurmagomedov. Then who he could go on to fight next? I mean, it's interesting. I don't know what his kind of contract is with the PFL, and so if he has to fight with the PFL again, then realistically there isn't a tremendous amount of kind of big name options. Alfie Davis just won the PFL tournament, and he's a British guy, so that could be perhaps a good option there. That could be another kind of young new name. Somebody who's actually on this card is Kyolan Loughran, and of course he's coming off a fight in the UFC and then got released after winning in the UFC. So, maybe there could be some sort of thing there, another Irish name. If Loughran's able to win in his fight in the PFL, then maybe that could happen. Or, this could be realistically the perfect time for Nurmagomedov to be put into the UFC. Obviously, he's kind of always said that he didn't really want to go into the UFC because, of course, Islam Makhachev was the champion, and now Makhachev has moved on into the welterweight division. Of course, there's still talks about him fighting Topuria, but I really doubt that if Makhachev goes up into the welterweight division and wins the title, that he's going to want to come back down in weight again. So this could be a perfect time for an Usman Nurmagomedov to come and get a matchup against like a Sarukian. A Sarukian has been kind of sat on the sidelines, not fighting for ages, and that fight really could happen. I think Sarukian will be given, a tough test, a tough name before he's given another opportunity to get the title, and he's had a lot to say. So if he wants to fight Nurmagomedov and really kind of prove himself, I think Sarukian would be up for that as well. Again, I'm not sure what's the contractual kind of situations like with Usman Nurmagomedov and PFL, but if there's, that's the end of their deal, which it could be, then I would love to see Nurmagomedov versus Sarukian. If not, like I said, there's a couple options in the PFL, but again, not quite as exciting, not quite as big of names. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did need like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.